We want your bananas. Hey everyone, welcome to Princess of Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we are here with Dan episode 2. So, just off the bat, real quick here, I want to mention to you, like you're seeing this Wednesday. I'm recording this the previous Friday. I'm recording this the day it came out because I don't want to wait, and I don't want the possibility of getting spoiled. But you're still seeing this on Wednesday, so just letting you know this is recorded almost a week ahead of time. um, that being said, the first episode of Dan was so intriguing to me. It was so actively intriguing that I have watched it many times with a bunch of different reactors. I've watched it on my own again, and I've really been thinking about it a lot. And it's become massive since its release. Like, this was already a really big deal leading into its release, but it blew up even further because people who weren't exactly hyped for it had now gotten to see it, and now they're hyped for it. So the hype has basically doubled. And it's easy to see why. The first episode was insanity. And I mean that in a good way. Because there's anime that can give you crazy action, ridiculous stories, like wild characters, and just an overall insane vibe. But do it in a way to where it feels like it's too much, where it feels like they're trying too hard, or it just doesn't work for one reason or another. And then there's shows where that's actually part of the main appeal, where it's crazy in the right way, that it gets you, like, interested. It makes you wonder what the hell is going to happen next. Where is this going to go? What's going to go on with these characters? What other kind of entities are they going to come in contact with? This is that kind of series where the craziness is done in just the right way to where it's like not off-putting, but rather intriguing. And of course you have to mention the multiple levels of sexual assault in the first episode. Because normally that would be something that would be aggressively unenjoyable to watch, to the point where it would hurt the overall quality of the episode, and in my opinion, in a lot of ways, ruin it. Now, the difference here is that not only is it portrayed as inherently negative, but it's not portrayed in a fan servicey way. There's like maybe one shot that's a little bit much. It's when when Ayase is like unlocking her chi, and it like pans down from her lower area to her head and everything to kind of show the path her chi is taking to come out of her head, like her grandmother always taught her. But outside of that one shot where it's like, oh, it's like kind of really focusing on her half naked body after the aliens, stripped her and were trying to rape her. Other than that, it's not shown in that kind of fashion. It's shown as being bad. These aliens are trying to rape her. And it makes it very clear that this is a very bad thing. And that's one of the ways you can do fan service right, when it's clearly there, like showcasing a character being near naked or whatnot. But it's shown to be wrong. It's shown that the perpetrators who are causing her to be near naked are the bad guys, are actively villainous for doing so. And on top of that, it shows her not only escape that situation, but take her revenge on her assaulters with that kick, which is also cathartic because it goes back to her ex boyfriend at the beginning of the episode, who was trying to coerce her into putting out. It even flashes to that shot because she uses the same kind of kick to attack, but this time she's successful, showing not only the unleashing of her newfound abilities, but also showcasing that she's not going to let this shit fly anymore. That this is wrong and people like this deserve to be kicked. That's kind of the point. And it's the same thing like with Ken and Turbo Granny. Because Turbo Granny is an evil spirit. This is just blatant. And Turbo Granny, first appearing by saying, like, I'll let you suckle my teats if you let me gobble that weenie. It's like, one, it's just a total what the fuck moment. Where it's like, excuse me? And I've seen pretty much everyone who I've seen react to this, like, have to do, like, a massive double take at that moment, because it's just such a tone shift. But it's very clear she's the villain, and it makes it even more clear later on when she's possessing him. And after Momo is able to unwittingly remove her from his body, she even, it's again made very clear she's not the good guy. She acts entirely evil at that moment. She's like, oh no, he's still cursed. And it's like, just expelling me from his body won't stop that. But he will remain cursed as long as I'm around. And she's like, oh, you can come find me if you want. I can't stay here any longer. I need to get back to my my tunnel. But yeah, she's clearly, again, a villain. And so it's going to be interesting to see how they end up defeating her. But again, it shows like these sexual assaulters, both the ghost and the aliens, they're wrong. They're the bad guys. They're evil for doing this. And that's how that kind of thing should be showcased and handled. Now, I've also heard that apparently this does not like remain a thing in the series. I know it's kind of a spoiler, and it's not a huge spoiler. Like, it doesn't tell me what actually happens going forward. So it's not as bad as it could be, but yeah, I have been spoiled to that. Basically what I heard is that this kind of content is really only in these first few chapters, or I guess episodes in this case, and then it just completely goes away. It just refocuses, and the quote-unquote fan servicey sexual assault stuff is just no longer a thing. Which I absolutely believe, because the thing is, it feels like this was meant to, like, get your attention. Like, right from Turbo Granny's first line, that again changes kind of the tone of the episode, or I guess the first chapter in case of the manga. It's very clearly supposed to, like, catch you off guard. You're supposed to be like, what the fuck did she just say? That's the intent. And I think that having her, like, with the entire gobble your weenie thing, and then having the aliens also be assaulty, both within Ken Takakura and Momo Ayase's first interactions with them, it's meant to shock you. It's absolutely meant to throw you off. And it's like gonna be like, oh, this series is going to be insane. This series is going to be crazy and weird and wacky. That's the kind of tone you're expecting. It sets the tone, but it's not necessarily saying that the entire series is going to be that, if that makes any sense. Um, but I can see it turning away a lot of people nonetheless. I feel like it would like turn a lot of people off of this series. And that's actually the reason why I ended up hearing this. Someone was like basically saying it's like, no, no, don't worry, it's not going to be like this the entire time. In fact, it's not going to be like this pretty much the entire time of the run. It's just like this at the very beginning. So, I'm very curious to see what more happens. Now, I have not seen any other spoilers, but I am curious because I've seen a piece of fan art that had one of the other, I guess, student characters. I think it's like this pink haired girl. I saw a piece of fan art with her and Momo, just like hanging out together or something. So I'm guessing they're maybe going to be friends, but I mean, that's not really unexpected necessarily. Um, I'm just I don't know like any details. I'm just going off of a piece of fan art I saw. So I mean, maybe this character is also popular. I don't know. I don't know. Of course, it also could just be like someone drew the character from the opening, and these two might not actually be friends in any way, shape, or form. It's it's hard to say because sometimes people will like, oh, see the opening, a character who hasn't even appeared yet, and they'll draw them just because the character looks interesting. And all the characters in the opening do look interesting. The I think there's two other students. There's the adult woman, maybe in her 20s or something, with the like beehive hair, who like gnashes on the sucker during all the face shots and everything. And then there's the cat, the lucky cat mascot character. Definitely very curious about the lucky cat. Mascot characters can be very annoying if not done right. I've seen various anime with a mascot with like these little animal mascot characters, and some of them are okay. Some of them are reasonably likable even. And then there's characters like Happy from Fairy Tail, who's just the most fucking annoying thing in the world. And it's one of the main reasons why I could not continue watching Fairy Tail. I fucking hate that cat. But there are mascot characters that are done right. Like I guess you could kind of include Chopper from One Piece in that, even though Chopper wasn't initially meant to be that kind of character. Um, but yeah, there's characters where they can handle that in a better way. I'm just curious about the cat too because of the ending, the ending animation and all, showing like the cat hanging out with like a just a regular cat and everything, and bopping to music, playing with a hair dryer. It's like the cat seems to have like more than animal level of consciousness. So I'm kind of wondering like, is this another spirit thing? I don't think it's an alien, though I guess it could be. I don't know. Um, but outside of all the craziness, I did really enjoy the first episode, and I've actually enjoyed it a lot more on rewatches because it's really entertaining and interesting the way it's animated, the way the voice actors perform their roles. Apparently, like I think I noted that Turbo Granny is Luffy's voice actress, Mayumi Tanaka. Um, but we also have the voice actor of Tanjiro from Demon Slayer, who is Ken Takakura, and Zoro's voice actor from One Piece is one of the aliens, one of the Serpoians, I believe their name is. Which is really funny to me that both Luffy and Zoro are in the first episode as the bad guys on each different side. I think that's just really funny to me. And I know they've done various other roles. Kazuya Nakai, Zoro's voice actor, like he's the Japanese voice of Jin Sakai in Ghost of Tsushima. Like that's a pretty big video game role, as an example. He's also in Blue Exorcist, and just again various other things. Mayumi Tanaka's been in plenty by this point, considering how long she's been in the industry. And yeah, it's just I understand that, but I know them mostly for Luffy and Zoro, and so it's kind of funny like hearing their voices, and I didn't recognize either of them off the bat, but like going back and listening to it, it's like, oh, that's absolutely Luffy's voice. I can absolutely hear it. I can absolutely hear Zoro's voice in the one Serpoyan, 100%. And it's just like I just didn't connect that when watching. Tanjiro's voice I would not have recognized. That's just not something I would have. But other people who are a lot more into Demon Slayer did. And I mean that's interesting, I guess. I mean, yeah, voice actors do different roles though. It's not really that surprising necessarily. It is just kind of cool though hearing a voice you recognize or a voice actor you recognize. So I get it, but I like the characters, the main characters so far. They're fucking weirdos, and I really dig characters who are just kind of almost unapologetically weird. But I also like that they both clearly have really good hearts. Especially Momo, like the way she stood up for Ken in the class and everything without even knowing him at the time. They also have like good motivations for believing in what they believed in initially. For Momo believing in ghosts and Ken believing in aliens. Mind you, hers was a lot deeper of a reason with the entire history with her grandmother. His was more, you know, he was just being bullied and, he was a loner, didn't have any friends. I mean, it's still sad and it's still like a very well handled reason, but. But I've probably been talking way too long. In fact, I can guarantee I've been talking way too long. I apologize for how long these pre-thoughts are. This is like the second or third video I've recorded lately where the pre-thoughts have just been like weirdly long because I've just had a lot to say. I just wanted to like continue to share my thoughts based on things. The last thing I'll say though before we get this going is you may be wondering why we're doing this already so soon. Usually I don't get to first impressions continuations like anytime soon after I first do the first impressions reaction. But the space opened up and I decided I just wanted something with this kind of tone. And with it being weird and wacky and just kind of fun on top of that, I also wanted something newer, something fresher. And I thought like this is probably the newest I'm going to get. It's a currently airing series and it would be fun to kind of react to something that's currently going because I don't do that often enough. Most of the stuff I react to is older, even if it's just a season older or if it's years older. I usually don't get to things right when they come out, with a few exceptions here and there. But, even with a lot of shows, it's like, oh, this show is streaming, so everything's released at once. So I'm technically starting it when it first comes out, but then it's weeks later. Everything's already been out by that point. But no, I'm going to be getting to this each week. So, very excited to get to more of Dan Dan. Let's just get to it. Cutting in here real quick to remind you of all the awesome content we have on the channel. Between Monday and Friday, we have a plethora of awesome series reactions with 2 on Wednesday. We have movie reactions every Saturday and Sunday. I do pre-record them during the week, but upload them on the weekend. And we have gaming content over on the Princess Gaming channel. We have Baldur's Gate 3 every single day, Horizon Forbidden West every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, Beyond Two Souls on Wednesdays and Sundays, and Poppy Playtime every Saturday. And don't forget to click that link in the description to follow it to today's reaction. I do redirect everything on the channel just due to copyright. And on top of that, don't forget to click the subscribe button to subscribe to the channel and the like button to help support. It means a lot, and I thank you so much for tuning in. That being said, let's get to today's reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. Welcome to Occult Class with Professor Connie. Today I'm going to teach you about the Flatwoods Monster. The Flatwoods Monster, also known as the Braxton County Monster, Braxy, or the Phantom of Flatwoods in West Virginia folklore, is a creature reported to have been sighted in the town of Flatwoods in Braxton County, West Virginia, on September 12, 1952, after a bright light crossed the night sky. Over 50 years later, investigators suggest the light was a meteor, and the creature was a barn owl perched in a tree with shadows making it appear to be a large humanoid. The design of the Flatwoods Monster in this is pretty accurate. It's obviously kind of combined with a sumo design, but the general design is like about that size. But based on what I'm seeing here, like it does have like the kind of crown thing around its head, and its body seems almost like it looks like it's wearing a dress of sorts with like this kind of like metallic midsection thing and these long clawed hands. So it's definitely got a slightly different look than in the conventional depictions. But this isn't the first time this specific folklore creature has been showcased in a piece of media. The monster has been featured in Fallout 76, references to at least. And there is a episode of the History Channel series Project Blue Book that talks about it. So yeah, the town actually has this like festival centered around it, designated the town as the home of the Green Monster. It's like there's just this entire big cultural thing surrounding it. And I think that's really cool that this is a genuine like concept that is being brought into things. And within folklore, it is also believed to be extraterrestrial in origin. So they got this kind of completely right. The lore is correct. And I'm not only just impressed by that, but I think that's really cool too. Because this is American folklore. It's not like Japanese folklore, which you do see quite a bit in various anime and stuff. They're including folklore from around the world. And it kind of makes me wonder. Let me see if I can look this up real quick. I want to see, is Turbo Granny a real thing? Beyond this, of course. It looks like it is because it looks like this has been used in other media too, such as Shin Megami Tensei. Yes, Turbo Bakan, or Bachan, however it's pronounced, it's probably Bachan, also known as Turbo Granny, is a popular urban legend originating around the highways of Mount Roko in the Hyogo Prefecture. So yes, this is a real piece of folklore as well. And that's really cool. I really like that this different like spiritual and extraterrestrial folklore is being used, and again different cultural ones too. We have Turbo Granny, which is a Japanese piece of folklore, and we have the Flatwoods Monster, which is American folklore. I wonder if we're gonna get different creatures like from around the world, different pieces of folklore from like all over like Europe and Africa and, Asia, the Americas. That would be really cool. Just getting all of this different folklore integrated into this one series. I think that's just a really neat concept. Speaking of really neat concepts, I like how a lot of the battle in this was done in black and white. It it really helped sell the intensity of it, but also helped sell the transformation. Okarune's transformation into this depressed, um, badass fighter mode kind of thing. The design works really well within the black and white because of the red streaks and everything. And I think that that was a just a really smart visual decision. I also really like it because it helps the scene stand apart from the rest of the episode. The rest of the episode, you see it in full color and everything, like both before and afterwards. So it allows the scene, allows the fight to feel unique. Not to mention with the walls of, I guess, this alien ship or something, I don't know, surrounding the area while the Flatwoods monster is there. You also have this sense of like entrapment that the black and white helps sell as well. It helps it feel a little more claustrophobic, feels a little more, you know, dangerous, like a problem. And honestly, I really expected her grandmother to come in during this fight, but no. Instead, they actually managed to, defeat this monster on their own. And I actually kind of appreciate that. I kind of appreciate when a show can, like, take my expectations and basically flat up ignore them in order to do something better. This, instead of them having to get saved, it allowed to show that they can fight too. That even though they're not good at it yet and they're not practiced with their abilities, that they have the ability if trained properly, which that's probably how the grandmother's going to come in since she's a spirit medium. If trained properly, they can absolutely do something on their own. And even without training, they were able to take on this alien creature, this giant, powerful alien creature on their own. And somehow Momo survived doing so because, let's be honest, let's be fucking honest here, she should have fucking died. After the very first time she was hit into the wall like that would have fucking, like, turned her into a paste. Let's be completely honest here. The only explanation that makes any sense and that would be, satisfying enough to accept is that she used her powers to block some of the damage. That she used her powers to shield herself to a degree to keep herself going. And the thing is, we don't really have any evidence that she did so, and that does kind of suck. But I'm going to assume that's what happened because it helps me sleep at night. It helps me like live with what happened there because otherwise it should not have worked. She should be very fucking dead. Now him surviving, like taking more hits and everything is a little more like understandable because he's, was in the super form and everything and has this curse on his body in general. That could give him some extra toughness and allow him to survive a lot more. But, like, outside of having the spiritual power, like, she doesn't have any, like, other kind of thing. So you have to assume the spiritual power is what's protecting her. It's the only explanation. Because otherwise, physically, again, she would have very, very much died from that. Like, it's not even exaggeration. That would have turned her into a paste, she would be flat against that wall. There would be blood everywhere. It would be horrific. And I understand, like, you can't have her killed in the second episode, but you also want, like, to show that this thing was a massive threat and was, extensively hurting her. Like, this is probably the only way that they could have done that. I don't know if this will end up being explained, but again, that's what I'm going with, that it's just she used her spiritual powers to protect herself, even if unknowingly. But even so, she still got very fucked up, as shown when she passes out in the end. The interesting part about it, like, more so than anything, is when she passes out, his powers obviously go out of control because she has to actively use her powers to hold him back. How is that going to keep up throughout this series? If she has to actively use her powers at all times to hold him back, like, what happens when they go to sleep? He's got to, like, find a way to control it himself. That's really the only way to get past it, or to just clean up the curse. But the problem is, I feel like he's not, like, they're not going to cleanse the curse completely, because there's no way they're not going to have this super form continue to be a thing, right? That's absolutely got to continue being a thing. But at the same time, it's like, if they clear the curse, it can't be. So I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and find out to see what happens in regards to that. But, yeah, at the end here, we do see that she passes out and he goes into, like, full transformation. I don't think she's going to get up in time, so I'm assuming the grandmother has to come in. Because we haven't seen the grandmother yet since they went to her house and all. And, like, it's clearly setting up for that. It's clearly setting up for her to be, like, a notable character here. So, I'm just wondering how that's going to be done. Outside of that, we also had just getting to see these two bonding a little bit through this all. We got to see how, like, even though they're still, like, kind of picking at each other and mocking each other to a degree, like, they're finding friendship nonetheless. And we also got to see Momo's room, and it's not at all what I expected. But again, not in a bad way, actually in a good way, because let's be honest, my expectations were, like, pretty much a plain looking room with I keep messing up, Ken Takakura posters everywhere. Like how, like, when a girl's, like, obsessing over, like, a pop star, like, I don't know, Justin Bieber, Jesse McCartney, whoever, it's like there will be posters all over the room and stuff. It's like, that's what I expected. But I think there was only, like, one poster for him that I could see, at least. But the room was very pink. There were stuffed animals and stuff, and it's like, I don't know, I didn't expect it. It was super girly. And I didn't expect that for her. She doesn't seem like a super girly type. But again, I'm glad to have been proven wrong and everything, because it shows that I was, kind of judging her based on the little bit we've seen of her, to be fair. I was making assumptions based on some narrow-minded viewpoints that clearly did not show all of her personality or character. And I like being proven wrong in cases like that. I think that it's something that helps me grow. But also, it just means that it's going to be good for the character in the series as well. because it's going to allow them to be more interesting than what I initially envisioned. And that's always a positive. This was just as good of a follow-up. Now, it did mention the kind of stuff that happened in the first episode, because of course it did. It's a direct continuation. So, like, the banana organ and everything, and the fact that his weenie is actually gone. It's like, seriously, does he have like a Ken doll, like, flesh lump there or something? Like, just nothing besides just, like, a patch of flesh? Is it something like that now? How does this work? Um, like, listen, they raised the question, but at the same time, this definitely didn't, like, present itself as being as bad as the first episode with the sexual stuff and everything. Which, I mean, I didn't quite expect it to, because, like I said, I was kind of spoiled on that. But I also just wouldn't have expected it to. It didn't feel like it needed to continue with that in quite that way. Now, the Lakewood Monster was saying, like, they broke a promise? To my knowledge, there was no promise made with the Serpoians. So I don't know what the fuck it was talking about. But the entire thing seemed to be centering around the banana organ again. So what was the promise? Because she never made a promise for that. They abducted her and were trying to rape her without her consent. She was trying to fight back. There was no promise made. And it's like, we have no reason to believe that this creature wasn't with the Serpoians, because everything seemed to be, like, lining up in terms of motivation and whatnot. If it was something else, then why do all these aliens think that there's a human organ called a banana? Like, what is happening with that? Like, and if it is, if it is with the Serpoians, then what's the promise? It raises questions, and I don't know how much is going to be answered, but it does make me very intrigued and very curious. We also saw when they were entering the house, we also saw there was a lucky cat sitting there. Just a normal, lucky cat, like, figure, statue, whatever you would call it. And I'm assuming that there's going to be a spirit that's put into it at some point. Because it looks like it kind of looks like the lucky cat from the opening and ending. So I'm very much thinking that there's going to be a spirit that is put into the lucky cat, and that it's going to come alive and be a mascot character. So in that kind of way, it's kind of like Bleach, actually, which, spiritually speaking, makes a lot of sense. Bleach has also inspired quite a few things. Like, Jujutsu Kaisen is one of the big ones that it inspired. But yeah, in Bleach, there is a character named Cone, who is kind of a fake spirit of sorts, that a created spirit. And initially, he's used by Ichigo to basically take over his body temporarily when Ichigo's in his spirit form, because he doesn't want his body just, like, laying down, like, apparently dead to anyone walking by, just in an alley or something. So Cone would take over his body and, be, like, keep it safe and everything. The problem is Cone is defective. And so he has, like, this mischievous personality. And eventually, he after he, like, takes Ichigo's body for a joyride and stuff, he ends up getting trapped in a stuffed lion. And so the rest of the series, you see him in, like, this stuffed plush lion, and he's he becomes a mascot character. And I'm thinking the same thing is going to happen here. We're going to have a spirit that's, that causes trouble. Probably the grandmother ends up putting it into the cat, the lucky cat, and it becomes a mascot character. That's what I'm expecting. Something very, very similar to Bleach, which isn't a bad thing at all because I actually kind of like Cone. He's fun and he's funny. So there's definitely possibility with this cat. Um, Definitely curious to see where that goes. Now, the interesting thing is the creature in this episode, the Lakewood Monster, is an extraterrestrial. We didn't have any spirits in this episode. So it seems like we might be going back and forth between the spiritual side of things and the extraterrestrial side of things. We're going to cover both of these within this series, but it's going to go back and forth. It's going to have oh, this episode has an alien, this episode has a spirit, and so on and so forth. What I'm surprised by is that we didn't touch on Turbo Granny too much outside of just the continuation of episode 1. We actually didn't go back to the tunnel because, it turned into daytime, and I guess, she won't be around in the daytime. But yeah, so we didn't really get to confront her, and while her presence is still here because of the curse, we didn't actually resolve that yet, and that's really interesting to me. Because I really thought we would resolve that in episode 2, and then it would go on from there, but instead, that's continuing to be a thing, which, again, with the introduction of his, super mode, Okarune's super mode, it makes sense. Now, I think the last thing I'm going to mention here, real quick, is Okarune himself and the nickname itself. Because Momo refuses to acknowledge his real name. Because of the way he looks, because of the way he acts and stuff, she refuses to see him as Ken Takakura. Again, having the same name as her celebrity crush. And because of this, she gives him the nickname Okarune, which I feel is probably derived from otaku, Ken, and maybe the standard suffix kun. So it's probably a combination of that kind of stuff is where she got the name. Okarune is not a bad nickname, though. It sounds good, and it even showed that he wasn't against it necessarily. He was just surprised and maybe a little confused as to why he couldn't use his own name. But it kind of showed that he was pretty chill with having the nickname. In fact, it maybe even implied a little that he was just happy that someone would like him enough to give him a nickname like that. So there's that kind of viewpoint on it too. I think it's good. I think it works. I'm probably gonna call him both at certain times. I'll probably call him Okarune most of the time, like I have been in this in these afterthoughts and all. But I might call him Ken at points here, which it doesn't really matter. We just know that Momo doesn't like it because she refuses to accept that he has the same name. But the funny thing is, this can happen. I mentioned it last time. I mentioned it in the first reaction, I believe, that my grandfather's name was Kenny Rogers, like the country singer. And we very much made note of that many times over the years. So yeah, it's definitely a thing. People can have the same names. It just sometimes happens. But yeah, I really like that this series is taking again real life mythology and stuff and using that. Um, and I just dig a lot of the concepts in this and a lot of the ways it's animated, the ways it's presented. Like I think it's like right at the beginning pretty much, but it like shows like passage of time and stuff through like these different frames that pop up on the screen. Like there's a frame up here at the top of the screen, then down in the middle, then down at the bottom, and they pop up one after the other, and it's like that's just really cool. That's just really cool. I just really dig that. This show is very stylized, and stylization is something that I've always really enjoyed. So it's a definite plus for this series, and this episode just continues to showcase that in a pretty great way. So tell me your thoughts on episode 2 of Don to Don, and reminder, no spoilers. Do not spoil me. I'm going into this as blind as possible, and I'm going to be avoiding all spoilers online and stuff as well. So do not spoil me. I want these reactions to be the best they can, and they're going to be the best they can by being as blind as possible. So yeah. But let me know your thoughts just on this episode and even the first episode again. And thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. That being said, thank you once again. For now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.